I've changed colors again. I'm going to do my wrong side rectangles in blue. And I just wanted to point out that usually, or up until this point, we have been picking up 5 stitches. And we will continue to pick up 5 stitches for our wrong side rectangles. But when you're doing the first one, we only need to pick up 4 along this side of our left triangle, and that is because we have 1 stitch already from our triangle, so we only need to pick up 4. So picked up 4 in the stitch gives us our 5 stitches that we have been working with. Okay, and I'm just going to pick up and purl here. And I find it's a little more difficult picking up on the purl side, but see if I can get this here. Okay, so I'm picking up 4 stitches now. There's 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to pick this guy up right here. 4 stitches. So I have 5 here. I'm going to turn and knit. Turn. And now, on our wrong side rows, I'm going to be slipping the first stitch. On the right side rectangles, I was slipping the first stitch on knit rows. On the wrong side rectangles, I'm slipping the first stitch on purl side rows. And that will give me my clean edge when I come back for my second tier of right side rectangles. So purl to the last stitch, and then you're going to purl 2 together. That will start eating up the stitches from our rectangle right here beside our first wrong side rectangle. Turn and knit your stitches. Turn and purl to the last stitch. Purl 2 together. And turn and knit. So really this is just like doing the right side rectangles, except that we are picking up and purling our stitches and purling 2 together instead of doing the slip slip knit. And this is my last turn and knit row of this rectangle. And when you've purled together your last stitches, you're not going to turn the work. you're ready to pick up the stitches along this side of your previous tier rectangle and start our second wrong side rectangle. So now I'm going to pick up 5 stitches, pick up and purl. Here's 1. I really don't enjoy picking up on the purl side, I have to tell you. It's really awkward. Here's 2, 3, 4, and I'm just going to pick up this guy right here. 5. Oops. There we go. 5 stitches picked up and purled, and I'm going to turn and knit those 5 stitches. Turn and purl to the last stitch. Oops, I'm supposed to be slipping that first one. You really don't have to slip your stitches. For me, I just think it makes it easier and it makes a neater edge if I have a slipped stitch to pick up. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You should just do whatever is the most comfortable for you. Almost done with my second wrong side rectangle. Okay, this is my last turn and knit row of this rectangle. And just like before, once you've purled your last stitches together, you're not going to turn. You are ready to pick up again and purl for your next wrong side rectangle. So I'm going to grab 5 stitches here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and here is 5. Oops. There's 5. Turning and knitting your 5 stitches, of course. And I am slipping my first stitch, purling to the last stitch, and then purling 2 together to join my current rectangle with my rectangle from the tier below. And I'm doing this in stockinette stitch, obviously, but you don't have to do stockinette fabric. You can do garter stitch fabric. The only thing with that is when you pick up on your wrong side, you still need to pick up and purl. And since garter stitch looks the same on both sides, you'd want to pin a split ring marker or maybe a safety pin, something on the front of your work so that you can keep track of which side is which. And also with garter stitch, your rectangles are going to be more square than rectangle shaped. And you're not even limited to garter stitch or stockinette stitch. The Entrelac book by Rosemary Drysdale has a lot of different stitch patterns incorporated into the rectangles. And Gwen Bortner also has an Entrelac book. And in her book, I believe she has a double knit Entrelac, or she just calls it reversible Entrelac. I'm pretty sure it is double knit though. I do not have the book. I have just read some comments about it. And I have the exact names of those books in the tutorial printout if anyone's interested. So really the only limit on this is your imagination. Okay, I'm completing my last row on this rectangle here. And I'm picking up stitches to work my very last rectangle on the wrong side. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to pick up this guy right here for my 5th stitch. There we go. And of course, just working this the same way that we have been. And I wanted to tell you also that Gwen Bortner also has an Entrelac class over on Craftsy. It's usually $40, but right now I believe it is $30. If you're really interested in Entrelac, you might want to go over to Craftsy and you can take a brief preview of the class. You might want to think about signing up for that. And she does, I believe, talk about knitting backwards or purling backwards so that you don't have to turn so much when you are working your Entrelac project. Like I said, I don't really care to do the backwards stuff. It just is not as fast for me as turning and working. It's all personal choice, of course. So once I'm done with this rectangle, before we can do the bind off, I will need to work another tier of right side rectangles because your bind off needs to be done from the wrong side. And the bind off is really like magic because not only do you bind off, but you create your triangles at the top of the fabric at the same time. So that's pretty nifty. Alright, here is my last rectangle completed. My last wrong side rectangle. And this is what we have so far in our little sample here. So I am going to work another tier of right side rectangles in my right side triangle, which will be in the pink, and then I will come back and show you how to bind off your little Entrelac sample. Alrighty, we are ready to do our bind off. I've worked another right side triangle and another tier of right side rectangles, as well as a left side triangle. And I'm ready to turn my work now and begin binding off. And I'm going to use this green yarn here to bind off. Now, last time I showed you the left-sided triangle, we only picked up 4 stitches because we already had one on our needle and we were only working with 5 stitches. When you're doing your bind off triangles, you're going to be working with 1 more stitch than you've been working with up to this point. So this time when I'm picking up along my left side triangle here, I'm going to be picking up 5 stitches because I want to work with 6 stitches now, and I already have 1 on my needle. So I'm going to just pick up and purl 5 stitches here. Let me get my yarn ready. I really hate picking up and purling. You might could use a crochet hook to help you out if you're good with a crochet hook. It'll help get your stitches on maybe a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm picking up 5 stitches now. Here's 1. 2. 3, 4, and I'm going to pick this guy up. There's 5, so I should have 6 altogether. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now I'm ready to do my bind off triangles. I've picked up and purled, and I'm going to turn my work, and I'm just going to knit those 6 stitches. And then turn. Now we're going to purl the first 2 stitches together. And then you're going to purl to the last stitch. And you're going to purl 2 together. So you'll be joining our current bind off triangle to the rectangle that was done on the tier below. So purl 2 together, turn, and knit. Turn and purl your first 2 stitches together. Purl to the last stitch, and then purl 2 together. So again, it's 1 stitch from our bind off triangle and 1 stitch from the rectangle below. Turn and knit. Turn, purl 2 together, purl to the last stitch, which in this case is just 1, purl 2 together, turn and knit, now when you have 3 stitches of your bind off triangle, what you're going to do is you're going to purl 2 together twice. So you have your first 2 that you've been purling together, and your last stitch and your stitch from your rectangle, purl 2 together. So what you're going to have, 2 stitches on your right needle, and then 1 stitch on your left needle that is from your rectangle below. You're going to turn and knit, and turn, and now, oh, my yarn is stuck. There we go. What you're going to do is purl 3 together. So you'll get rid of the last 2 stitches from your first bind off triangle, and you'll get rid of the last stitch from your rectangle below. Purl 3 together, and you will have 1 stitch on your left needle. Let me just turn this around and show you what we have here. See that? It's a triangle, and you've bound it off at the same time. Isn't that magic? I like it. Okay, so once you've purled 3 together, you're not going to turn and knit. Instead, you are going to, again, pick up and purl 5 stitches, because you already have 1 here, so 5 plus 1 is 6, and that is what we want to work our bind off triangle. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And once you've picked up 5, you're going to turn. You should have 6 stitches. You're going to knit those stitches. Oops. Okay, turn. And again, we're going to purl 2 together. Purl to the last stitch, and purl 2 together. So purl your last stitch from the bind off triangle with your stitch here from the rectangle below. And of course you turn and knit. Turning and purl 2 together. Purl to the last stitch. Purl 2 together. purl 2 together, purl to the last stitch, purl 2 together, knit, and now we have the 3 stitches from our bind off triangle. And that means we're going to knit or purl 2 together twice. You have 2 stitches on your right needle and 1 stitch on the left needle. Turn and knit one more time. Purl 3 together. And you're ready to pick up for your next bind off triangle. Pick up and purl 5. Whoops, why I messed that one up. There we go. And one more. Alrighty. Turn and knit your 6 stitches. Same process we used before. Purl first 2 stitches together. Purl till you get to the last stitch. And then purl 2 together again. And we're almost done with this bind off triangle. Again, we have 3 stitches from our bind off triangle, 2 stitches from our rectangle below, and that means we're going to be purling 2 together twice to leave us with 2 triangle stitches and 1 rectangle stitch. Knitting those 2, turning and purling 3 together, and we're almost done. We're going to pick up and purl 5, of course turning and knitting those 6 stitches. Purl 2 together, purl until you get to the last stitch, and purl 2 together, you can use any yarn you like for Entrelac. You can do different colors like I've done here. You can do solid colors. You can do colors or yarn that have long repeats of color that looks pretty darn impressive. There's no limit except your imagination, like I said before. And if you don't like the results that you're getting, it's only yarn. You can rip it out and do it again. Alrighty, we are ready to purl 2 together twice. Turn and knit your 2 stitches. Turn and purl 3 together. And that means that you're done. Let me just break that there, pull that through. Of course, you might want to cut yours with scissors. So you weave in any loose ends that you have, and depending on what kind of yarn you used, you might want to consider blocking your final piece. But this is how to knit Entrelac.